Oh, hi there. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Usually Wrong, episode number 56. This is with Kane Holloway. So it's a good one. I'm really excited for you to listen to this. Couple things I forgot to mention last week. If you came out to the Brooks Wheelan show at the Pittsburgh Improv, thank you very much. It was a really fun time, some of the best shows that I've had the pleasure of doing, so thank you very much. If you'd like to come see me do comedy, I'm going to throw dates at you. I will be in Erie, Pennsylvania at the Avalon Hotel Friday, April 19th at 8 p.m. Comedy at Quinn Brewing Company, Saturday, May 11th, show that I'm putting on. And Comedy Night at the American. I've done that 3 weeks in a row. Or two. American Serbian Club, Friday, May 17th, 8 p.m. So come on out to those. Check out natanoff.com for everything else. Tons of dates. Tons of dates there. And then DM me, and I'll get you free tickets, whatever you'd like. Just DM me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Instagram's the best. This is with Kane Holloway. And it's funny. He's a Los Angeles-based comic. I've been a fan of his, and I messaged him on Instagram, asked him, hey, would you do my podcast? And he said, yeah, sure, that'd be great. He's very funny. Been doing comedy a long time, and this is the first episode over Skype. So it's really interesting. He's a really funny guy, really great guy, and he was kind enough to come talk with me for an hour and tell me about his experience in comedy, and it was really insightful and really great. And I'm very excited for you to listen to it. So please enjoy episode number 56 of Usually Wrong with Kane Holloway.
When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, you do that and forget the money. Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You will be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living. That is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.
You can do whatever you want, man. That's it. Like, cause I have people come into my office for this. Like, I have people just waltz in, and like half the time I'll start recording, and people are like, "Are we recording already?" And it's like I like the little, like the chitter chatter amongst like people coming in.
I like it too. I would like if the show started a few minutes before this, so when people are listening, they're hearing me describe having the show start before this.
That's exactly.
So it's like this inception of podcast entertainment, and they're like, "Oh God, this guy, could he go on any longer and pontificate like an asshole?" Stuff like that. That's what I go for.
I feel the same way. When you listen to podcasts, do you prefer structured setup of a show, or do you enjoy the chitter chatter? Like when I got into podcasts, I liked Nerdist. That was the one that like got me into podcasts. I like Pete Holmes' podcast, and I love your podcast. I like podcasts that like it feels like a conversation. Do you like that?
I like that, but I also need structure. I find myself like if I don't like a show or a movie that doesn't have a point.
I understand.
And that's the same thing with a conversation. If you're listening to two guys, girls, whatever, ramble on about nothing, that there's a fine line between. I think it was like a nice thing that podcasts did, where they would start midway through the conversation. You never heard a show start like that before, but now a lot of them do that. And so that kind of thing, like unless you can maintain that throughout, and that's what people look forward to. That's cool. But I like to try. I got to do something different. My last show was like that. You just kind of start in the middle of a conversation.
Yes. Yeah, I listened to your School of Rock episode today. I've been bouncing back and forth. Do you find that way with stand up then? Do you prefer? Okay, let me. This is how I think of it. I look at guys like John Mulaney, whose act is, it seems like every single word is crafted to an exact T. And then I look at other people where it feels like a a conversation between yourself and the audience. When you look at it from a stand-up perspective, when you're writing, are you word by word, or is it more of a conversation between you and the people there?
It's more of a conversation. I like making direct eye contact with people.
Yeah,
that's my favorite. My favorite thing is to make. I actually force people to heckle me in that way. I didn't know that.
Is it true?
I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But I would get on stage and then I would be doing my act and I would keep eye contact with this same like 3 people over and over again, to where I think they thought, oh, he's actually asking me questions.
Yeah,
and it didn't register in my head that that's what I was doing. I just feel comfortable. I feel like I have a better set if I make direct eye contact with people the whole time. If it ever feels like I'm staring off into the distance, there's a disconnect between me and the audience, and so I don't think maybe I'm wrong, and I feel like I have been wrong at times, but it just seems like I'm gonna have a worse set if I don't I'm in there with them.
Yeah, I agree with that. If I am on stage and it feels like I am rambling on and on and on to a crowd that is not engaged, to a crowd that it's always felt. I've been doing it 2 years, a little longer than that, so not as long as you. But the one thing I picked up early on was if I don't feel like I'm having a conversation with these people, they are tuned out. It really doesn't matter what I'm saying. It doesn't matter if I have the best joke in the world. If it's not a dialogue between me and the people in the crowd, it almost seems like it seems like I could be reading off of a script. It doesn't feel like a conversation.
Yeah, I like the conversational aspect of it, but I also like I like storytelling, but I also think like you don't have to be pigeonholed into one frame or the other. Like I think there's there's always a new way of going about doing it. You know, you can have conversational style, you can have storyteller style, you can have set up punchline. What are they called? One-liner comics. There was like a big alti scene that was like around when I started, but when I started, the alti scene was starting to die off because all those guys like Patton Oswalt and David Cross and Janine Garofalo were all like famous at that point,
right?
And so to come up and be different, which was alt comedy, that was now the norm.
Alt comedy was the norm.
Yeah, alt comedy became the norm by the time I got started.
Interesting. When did you start? How did you get started?
I started in, what was it? Good Lord, 2010? Was it 2010? Yeah, it was somewhere around 2008 to 2010, somewhere around there. Well, I started in high school. I went to an open mic.
Okay.
At a Borders Books. And
you started in high school.
Yeah, but I didn't go to any comedy clubs. I went to one. I didn't really start. I went to an open mic at a bookstore, and then I cursed a lot, and then they told me never. I bombed, and then
please don't come back.
Yeah, the bookstore banned me.
Really?
Yeah, because they were like, Jesus, man, like it's like a poetry kind of thing, and you came up there, and you couldn't stop saying the F word and yelling at customers.
You're the first person ever to get banned by a bookstore.
But it was Borders Bookstore, and a few years later, they didn't embrace the tablet, and they got fucked anyway.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I would like to think that there is a nice core. I would like to think that it's not my name or my gravitas that shuts people down. It's just my aura, like my unlucky aura, that I walk into a business, I make a disruption, and then that business goes to shit. I would love to think that I have that. Like sort of like when you see movies of Satan and he's walking around and then he touches flowers and all the flowers die.
That's just with corporate entities.
Yes, exactly. I want to shut down capitalism.
Did you start in L.A. then?
No, I started in Seattle.
You started in Seattle. What
Yeah.
was the scene like when you started in Seattle? Because that's not a comedy. You don't think of it as a comedy town.
It's a good comedy town.
Yeah.
It's a really good comedy town. They had at the time they had Giggles Comedy Club and a lot of guys that are doing shit now. I saw when I started, but they were Jeff Dye had just got on Last Comic Standing. My buddy Andrew Slater, who did Conan, they were all sort of chilling in that spot as regulars, and I just walk in, brash comedian, thinking I'm hot shit, and my buddy Brian Moot, like all these guys, it's so funny to like see, like think about them chilling in that little bar corner.
Yeah.
When I walk in and they're like talking shit, and I was petrified of all of them.
Talking shit on you?
No, they're just talking.
Just in
shit
general.
to each
Yeah.
other.
Okay.
Yeah. And
why?
And seeing those guys just like doing the same thing I was trying to do, just get 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Terry Taylor stage, and then they're all fucking Jeff Dye's been on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And Slater's been on Conan, and Brian, he's got a great radio show out in LA, and so like it's so funny to see those guys fucking like they were like the cast of the Breakfast Club, and now they're out doing all kinds of cool shit.
Yeah, Jeff was very nice to me. He was my first weekend at the Pittsburgh Improv. I won a competition at there. And
nice.
then he was my first weekend hosting last summer, and he was very kind to me. It was unbelievable getting to watch him, and like the little things that you learn that you don't pick up on until you do them. Like I was on stage, and I've told this a million times on this show, but I was on stage, and then I would bring him up, and then I would be exiting the stage, and I would go to shake his hand in the middle of the aisleway on the way back up. And after the show, he was like, just wait until you're on stage, or wait until I'm on stage, shake my hand, and then move off. And it's little things like that you don't pick up on until you do them years and years and years. Were there things like that for you, and were there people that you met along the way that you said, okay, I picked up so much from him that if I didn't meet that person, I wouldn't be where I am?
Yeah, John Doerr, he pretty much convinced me not to drink before sets when I'm especially hosting, because I fucked his name up, and he was the headliner.
Oh my god!
It was the second show, so I've already announced him once before, and
yeah,
I was outside smoking a cigarette, and he like came out. I had just like brought on the feature, and then I went out to smoke a cigarette, and then I was out there for like 5 minutes, and John Doerr just bursts. He comes through the comedy club doors, and he's like, he's off.
Oh my
he
god!
Just got off.
Oh my god!
And I had a full cigarette, and I flicked it, and I went to run back in, and he's like, I was just messing with you.
Oh my god! What the fuck are you doing?
Cigarette. You got $1? Because that's bullshit. I just lit that motherfucker. I'm hosting. So that was kind of funny. And then, but then I just like kind of kept pounding drinks because I was having a good time. He's really funny on stage, and he's like a different type of style of comedy I've never seen before. So I was really just enjoying him. And I even brought him up. I brought him up, and I was like, he's got his own show in Canada. And his show is called The John Doerr Show.
Oh my god!
And I didn't say it. I just go, he's got his own show in Canada, guys. Your headliner.
No.
And I couldn't conjure up a
name.
Yeah. And then he just walked on stage, and then I walked off stage very, very like ashamed, and then I was mad at myself for drinking so much.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and he goes, Kane, come back. He's like, Kane Holloway. He knew my full name.
Oh no.
Kane Holloway, like really burying me. And then he goes, Kane, come back. And then I go to walk on stage. He goes, are you walking back on stage? Get the fuck out of here. And so if I hadn't have met that guy and done that, I wouldn't have thought to be more professional. I think I would have continued to drink and like been not to take it as seriously if it wasn't for that specific scenario.
Professionalism. That's the word though. Like, because I experience the same thing. I'm cautious with how much I drink on stage, but not on stage, but before a show. But I also am conscious of making sure that I drink before I go on stage. Right now, when I was hosting for Jeff, people noticed me taking or having 2 or 3 beers before I went on stage, and I think that just settled me down. But I understand. I even look at it when I was there and I was looking at it from a professional standpoint. I was like, what if these people see me drink too much? What if these people don't think I take this seriously or in a professional manner? It's a fine line to gauge. Not even with that kind of stuff too, but how you tip the waitresses after. Different things like that. Again, it's all experience. If you don't fuck up, then I wouldn't have learned those little things.
Right, and not that you're asking for advice.
No, I definitely am.
But I wouldn't just give it unsolicited advice.
I understand.
But I've been to shows. I've been the drunk guy at the show, and nobody wants that guy. It doesn't matter how funny you are. It really doesn't, because you could go up and murder, level the room. You could be, and the crowd could be like, he was the funniest one. And if you're a drunken buffoon at the bar, that's the only thing they'll remember.
Yeah.
So that's another big reason why I don't drink anymore anyway. But if I wouldn't be drinking as much, or I wouldn't drink at the clubs. I just wouldn't drink at the clubs. Yeah,
because it's your job. It's your bread and butter. When did you move to LA, and what was the catalyst to move?
My fiance Kelsey wanted to move. She had a show out here that was like a big deal, and like good LA fashion. As soon as we got down here, they canceled the show.
Oh my God.
And we were both kind of devastated by it. She was devastated because the show was canceled, and I just didn't want to live here.
Is that scary then? Is that did you still want to be here for stand-up? Like, you started stand-up in Seattle, but did you still want to be here for stand-up? And did that affect your act at all? Because if you're nervous and scared, it's different.
Oh yeah, I hated every second of living here for I think 2 years.
Why? Tell me why.
I hated the vibe. I couldn't get on stage. I would meet people, but it really wouldn't matter. Nobody wanted to look at me, and if they did, it was more of like, you build to a plateau in your neck of the woods, like Seattle. Like, I got to a place where I was a regular house feature, and I was headlining a lot on the road, and then I was about to start headlining in clubs, and then we moved here, and then all that was wiped away, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't mature enough to check my ego when I got down here. But I knew not to walk into places thinking I was better than LA. I knew that. However, in my head, I couldn't shake the fact that I felt like a headliner not being able to get open mic spots. So it was like a blow to the ego. And you sort of you got to change as a person. You got to learn, and it was my buddy Ken Gar. He's just like, dude, no one gives a shit out here. You could be hilarious and kill at these mics, kill at these shows, kill at these audition shows, and no one will pass you because it's Los Angeles, man. You just have to suck it the fuck up or move. Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean, though? Because I'm in the process of moving to New York at some point this year, and it's going to happen. But what inspires people to go to the cities like that? If you say to me that you can be the funniest person in the world, but it's LA or New York, what drove you to stay? Other than Kelsey, Evan, other than that, but for you, what's made you stick out LA then?
Well, My thing, I talked about this on a different podcast, is called the Sex Actually podcast.
Yeah.
My buddy Dave runs out here, and we talked about. I've always had it in my head. So my dad was a dreamer, and an idea guy, but too afraid to pull the trigger on anything.
Huh.
So that was my childhood. He was drafted to the Pittsburgh Pirates farm team, but then he had me, so he gave up on his dreams. And I think he told me that one day, like when I was going to select ball. He's like, "Now stick with it, because I could have been in the MLB if it weren't for you." So I'm like, okay, is that encouraging? Are you discouraging me? And then I would just kind of watch him throughout his life go. He hates his job. He never wanted to do anything, right?
Yeah.
So I would watch him suffer, but he was suffering at his own hand. Like he never tried to get out of that job.
Yeah.
So then I would watch. So then he would go, I want to start a sports bar, and he would just be talking to me like I'm his buddy. He'd be like, I want to start a sports bar, and I'm like, then start a sports bar, and he'd be like, Kane. All of a sudden, I'm an idiot. He's like, Kane, I can't start a sports bar. I'm 35. How am I going to start a sports bar? Who's going to give me a loan for a sports? I'm like, I'm 16. I have no idea what the fuck you asked. That's all I'm saying. And so he would just do that over time, like constantly, like I want to do this, but I can't because of all these limitations and blah, blah, blah. And then I right then and there, these moments, I just remember them, and I remember how miserable he was. And I just thought, no, that's not going to be me. So even though I was miserable at something I was trying really hard to succeed at, something I really want to do. And so that's what makes being miserable palatable, is because you're miserable, but you're working towards your inevitable goal. Whereas being miserable and never doing anything about it, then that's a place I don't want to live. I'd rather fail at comedy forever than quit.
That's great. Let me add something to that, though. I completely understand what you're saying. My dad wasn't the same way. He was a little bit different. He started his own practice in his 50s, right? But I've met so many people in my day job kind of work. I do like financial advising. But I've met so many people who are retiring right now who were miserable, who didn't do what they wanted to do. I can't even tell you, Kane, Holloway, how many people I've heard say I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, and they couldn't do it. Not to mention people who had kids early on, that situation, who didn't get to do what they wanted to do before they had kids. And I look at that the same exact way, where it's if I don't do what I want to do, if I do that, if I get to 60, 70 years old and I look back and I say, why didn't you go do stand-up? Why didn't you go try that? There's going to be resentment towards this guy. But and on the other end, on the same side of that, if I have kids, this is even scary to me. If I have kids and I haven't done what I want to do with my life, done stand-up, done podcasts, went for things, there's going to be resentment towards that kid. And that scares me even more than resentment towards myself or my fiance. Those things terrify me.
Well, then you also have to factor in that, because I always think about people who say they want to have a baby. Like, I want to have a baby. We're going to have a baby. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. But, that baby's going to be a human being one day.
Yes.
Who can vote, have to pay taxes, get a driver's license, hope that they don't commit any crimes, go to prison. Like they're going to have the exact same worries till one day they're going to build themselves up to go, I want to have a baby. And you're repeating a cycle of people that just want to have babies. And so you have to also look at, like, you're going to have resentments against that kid. Sure. And I know that my dad had resentments against me, but I also hate his guts. So you have to think about that kid that you are going to resent. It's like that kid's going to feel that. He's going to feel your resentment, and then he's going to turn and go, one day he's going to look at you like you're this all-knowing superhero, and then the next day you're going to be like, why the fuck do I listen to this motherfucker?
Right.
Like, fuck this guy. This guy stinks. He just sits on his ass. He doesn't do anything, and then he judges me. Fuck him.
That's it, dude. That is exactly it. I'm terrified of that sort of thing. I grew up in a family that loved and supported. I did. I'm very thankful for that. I have parents who want me to go to New York and do stand up. That it terrifies me that if I don't do those things, I wouldn't be the same way towards them. Like that really is a. I'm 25. That is a real fear of mine.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, 25, I would go to New York. I wish I would have moved to New York when I was I wanted to go when I was 22.
Is that so?
But I was kind of loving I was loving the fact that I was starting to like figure out stand up, and so I just was like, I'll stick it out in Seattle for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did that, but I also wish I would have at least lived in New York a year, just so for myself I could see what it would have been like.
Okay, but tell me why then, because I hear so much that I hear from people in the Pittsburgh saying that you shouldn't move to New York, you should move to Atlanta or Seattle or places that you have more time to get on stage. Pittsburgh, I can get booked every single week. I can do 15 great open mics and I can get booked whenever I want for things. I'm making my own stuff here. With New York and LA, it's a little bit different. If you went to New York, do you think your act would be significantly different now?
Yeah, if I would have went to New York back then, I would probably be a different comic. I would have, and I would be in a completely different place. I know that, but because that's just how it works, timeline wise.
Yeah.
It's like I can't know. I mean, there's a bunch of different variables that would have happened, but I know for a fact that it would have been completely different. I would have made different choices. I would have done different things. I would have tried different things than what I tried doing this. In this timeline, if we're going to talk about like multiverse decisions where I actually did go to New York in this life, and in this timeline, I'm much bigger than I was, or I'm dead. You know?
Do you notice a difference between New York versus LA comics?
You know, it's funny is I've been, I mean, kind of not really. The only thing is LA comics like to talk about what they have rather than talking to you as a human being. Not all of them.
Sure. Yeah.
But if you go into a comedy club, sort of anywhere in the greater LA County area, for the most part, unless they're like a seasoned vet who's just kind of been through it all, the last thing they're gonna do is talk about what they have going on. They're gonna in their career.
Okay.
What I've noticed about older comics, like if you go to the Comedy and Magic Club,
the Comedy and Magic Club.
Yeah, the Comedy and Magic Club. It's down in, I think it's Manhattan Beach, and those guys, they're like seasoned vets for the most part, most of them, and they just sit in a green room and they fucking eat steak, and then they just compliment each other. They're like, dude, I saw your fucking Tonight Show set. I loved it. Like, oh, dude, I remember when I listened to your album, like all of a sudden they get into this nostalgia place, and then they like talk about how great one another is. But when you if you go to a club and it's comics my age who are very career hungry, you get into a conversation about what they got going on. And
about what they got going on.
Yeah, here's like, I'm doing this, and I just got a casting agent. I'm doing commercials. I'll be doing a commercial for Radio Shack. Like, they have all these things going on. And it's like, I just asked how your day was. I don't fucking give a shit about any of this. And you're even a friend of mine. I don't give a fuck about this. But New York comics don't do that. In fact, I found New York comics to be very complimentary of the hustle that is LA. Interesting. Yeah. Just like a few comics, not all of them. Again, not all of them. I'm sure there's a bunch of New York comics that are like, LA comics are pussies. But New York comics are like, I did a few shows out there at the Stand and Long Island City. There's a club in Long Island City that has a great show, and a lot of those comics are New York-based comics, and they had nothing but nice things to say, and they're like, yeah, great set. Like LA, it just seems like you have to be better because there's fewer chances to get on stage. So you have to like be really good all the time.
LA fewer. I was under the assumption New York fewer.
No. New York, greater.
New
LA,
York
fewer.
greater.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
the concentration of comics in New York was higher relative to the amount of shows and spots that were available.
I
I'm
mean,
wrong.
there's a fuckload of them. There's a lot of comics out there,
Yeah.
but there's also a lot of stage time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to, if you want to develop as a comic, I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of comics when I first started that would say you go to New York to get better,
That's what, yeah.
to get great, and then you go to LA to get famous.
That's exactly what I've heard the same exact thing. Do you think
Yeah.
do you think you are yourself on stage, or do you think you are an exaggerated version of Kane? I would say for me right now, 2 years in, I am still doing my best impression of John Mulaney, Mike Birbiglia, and Pete Holmes. That is what I feel like I'm doing right now. And I've heard that's not a bad thing. You're 2 years in, it's not a bad thing. Do you think you're yourself on stage?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I've gotten to a place where I know where I'm comfortably funny, both on stage and off stage. Like I would deliver a setup in the same sort of vibe I have right now, and I'm very tired. But like I've walked on stage tired and had the same sort of vibe, and I've had good sets that way. I've also eaten shit.
Yeah.
And but I've always said it because I was the same way. When you start stand up, you're doing an impression of what you think a stand-up comedian is supposed to sound like.
That's exactly right.
And then it takes a long time to then stop. I sounded exactly like Brian Regan because that's all I ever watched.
Yeah.
And then I'm a big comedy nerd, so I'm looking at Greg Giraldo and Bill
Right.
Burr and Jim Norton and Bob Kelly and all these New York guys, mostly New York guys, and all of a sudden, dude, I'm like, I'm delivering my jokes, and I'm like, oh shit, and I can't help do a Burr now.
Yeah.
And people would tell me that. People are like, you sound like Bill Burr on stage, and I'm not even trying. I soaked it in, and I could. So I don't want to be that because my greatest fear in my career is to be considered a hack, and that's everybody. I would hope. But so instead, what I did is like, okay, now I have to learn exactly how Burr talks, so that when I'm on stage, I just don't do that. That's it.
Right.
So,
Do you remember a show or a specific time period that you felt like you got away from that? Do you remember a particular moment where you said, okay, I finally feel like I am Kane on stage?
No.
The answer could be no. Yeah.
No, you just kind of you just sort of fall into what you feel like, and I still get from people every now and then. They're like, yeah, like I get a Bill Burr vibe, but it's also because I'm bald and I'm white and I have red facial hair, and so like I don't think I'm ever, because he's one of the greatest and biggest comics of all time,
Right.
and he's just like the dude's flawless. So it's like. And he's got a lot of respect. He's like Eminem in the 2000s. So it's just like he's the GOAT, and no one can fuck with him. You can try and bash him, but it's like it's almost impossible. It's like shooting a BB gun at a tank.
Yeah.
And so that's the level that, like, because he exists, there might not be any room for me in stand-up, but that's not going to deter me from trying to be as authentically myself as on stage, because that's the only thing that's going to sell me to people is like, hey, I'm not him.
Is authenticity.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just kind of have to, especially when you're being constantly reminded of it. If you're always being reminded of that, then that's really all you can think about. So then you either decide, okay, I quit, or I just embrace it and I'm just a Bill Burr ripoff, or I'm going to try everything in my power, and that's the harder way.
Yeah.
The harder way is, fuck, how do I not get compared to one of the best?
Yeah. Are you consciously thinking about that on stage, though? Are you consciously thinking about being authentic when you're on stage?
I don't constantly think about it. I just feel like I know that I've always been conversationally funny, and you find yourself in situations where you're just sitting back and you're like, this would be kind of funny right now if I said this.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
just embracing that. And then you have to be crazy comfortable with bombing.
Oh, yeah.
and you have to be comfortable with acknowledging that you're bombing.
Yeah.
Like you just have to take that's how I grew up. So comedy was such a natural thing for me to fall into because the people who I loved the most in my life were the meanest to me. So
That was good. Yeah.
it made it almost impossible for an audience to make me feel bad.
Do you feel like then if people were mean to you, do you feel like comedy was an asset to you in that way? Do you feel like when you were doing comedy at a young age, it was more on the defensive more than the offensive? I mean, I'm going to defend myself with jokes and punches in your face rather than offensive. I'm making jokes for fun.
Yes, 100%.
You do.
I got up there with every intention to do it once and leave, and never do it again, just so I could say I did it.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
and then because I was going to be an actor, because I didn't think I was smart enough to write jokes.
Oh, okay.
Which is that like even though I wanted to pursue something and live in a world where I pursue.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn a light on real quick. But I just didn't think that I was a comedian, because it takes an incredible intelligence to write a joke, and I've never written a joke before in my whole life. And then somebody forced me into it, my buddy Sean, and so I went. And then I was like, all right, but this is the one and only time, and I'm crossing it off my bucket list. But then once I did it at an actual comedy club, I was like, yeah, the thing you've always wanted to do, that's it. It's over.
I feel
I'm never not doing it.
I feel that exactly. And I also feel what you say. I looked, I'll bring him up again. I'll do it all day. I looked at, when I was in high school, I looked at John Mulaney. I thought, that guy's a genius. I can't do what he did. But then I thought, okay, he had to have had 700 notebooks to write New in Town, things like that, right? I saw him and Pete Davidson this weekend in Scranton, and it was so interesting watching a comic that I've looked up to for the last decade work on material. Somebody who's so crafted with every single word. I saw him say things that I say at an open mic, like that worked at the earlier show, that worked last week, and fumble words. And I thought, okay, this is attainable. That is what I came out of the show with. Was this is attainable. This is something that I can do, not necessarily because I'm the smartest person, but because I have the work ethic of somebody who wants to do this as a career. Do you feel the same way? Does that relate to you at all?
Jim Norton would say it all the time. Like whenever people would be upset at him for jokes he's made on the radio or whatever, he's like, "Look, I'm a comedian. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm impacting anyone's life." And so that's what I think a lot of, especially new comics will just walk into a place and like, you can't tell me what to say. You can't tell me what to do. When I wrote a joke, it's one of the greatest things to ever. And I'm not speaking from a place where I don't know, because I was that fucking dummy. I remember walking around telling my buddy Sean, like, man, Terry should be paying us, the owner of Giggles Comedy Club. I was an open micer for 6 months. 6 months.
Right.
And I was saying to my buddy Sean, dude, the guy should be paying us. We're there every Sunday. We're bringing a crowd. This is ridiculous. Like, we're killing it. And then Sean's like, yeah, I guess so. And then Terry put me on a show. It was a sold-out show on a Saturday. So I didn't have any friends in the crowd.
Okay.
And none of them were going to come because they were like, I've gone to 6 months of your stand-up. I cannot hear the same what's the deal with ketchup joke any fucking more. I wrote a ketchup joke that was about how the pump is easier than the thing. Yeah. And it would never really work. And then Jim Gaffigan comes out with one, and I was like, God damn,
fuck that guy.
But it's just like, Jim Gaffigan's working on a whole new level. But so I remember I got that show, and everyone's killing in front of me, and I'm thinking, oh, well, if these guys are killing, they're gonna love me. Yeah. And then I got on stage and I ate. It's like they brought a big trough of dicks with grenades for balls, and I just ate them
one by one. Just
one by one.
One by
It was
one.
probably the worst I've ever
mile.
bombed in my life.
Yeah.
And because I just felt like I was better than the whole situation. I was better than all of it. Even the crowd, I was better than them because I'm hilarious. I'm the man, and I've been proven that because I keep stacking the deck. I keep coming up with all my friends who think I'm funny. And that another humbling moment of, listen, man, you're not because where was that kid? It took 6 months for me to say to myself, I'm too stupid to do this. And then in 6 months, it's like, I should be getting paid.
Right.
This there's just this ebbs and flows of arrogance and self-assurance that are not earned very early on.
Right. Okay. So I completely understand that because I've been in the same exact boat in stand-up in the last 2 years. Do you think that there should be, and I ask this question to almost every comedian I talk to, do you think there should be an amount of ego to you in any capacity? Because the way I think about it is, if I'm going to get up on stage and talk in a microphone to 400, 500 people at the Improv, that A, is a bizarre thing in general, and B, you have to exude an amount of confidence that might translate into an ego. Not arrogance necessarily, but do you think there has to be an amount of ego to you to do stand-up at all?
Well, I don't think you have much say in the matter as far as your ego is concerned. Your ego is what it is. Like you can't really control it. Everybody has an ego about anything. Like you think you're good at something, and it happens. It's going to happen in stand-up forever, where you think you're good at something, and then somebody else gets it over you.
Right.
And you have this internal struggle where you're like, but my set was better. I don't understand. Why is nobody talking to me?
Right.
You're just gonna have it, and that's because no one's talking to you.
Right.
And maybe you didn't have the best set. Maybe that's in your head. You never really know for sure because it's such a whirlwind of things that happen. But yeah, you're gonna have an ego no matter what. The thing that's really helped me with my ego is, and this isn't really applicable to you, but I got sober, and then I was still struggling with the idea of not getting on stage as much as I'd like. And my buddy Greg was like, dude, this isn't even for you anyway.
What, stand up or being sober?
Yeah, stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up's not for you. Stand up isn't even for you. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where you're not in control of it anyway. It's for the audience. You think you're writing jokes for you. You're not writing jokes for you. You're writing jokes for them.
Was he saying that you should be writing jokes for them?
No.
No.
You are writing jokes for them. Whether you think you're writing jokes for you, you're still writing jokes for them. So it's not for you, it's for them. They're not buying tickets. It's like, do you catch my drift? They're not buying tickets with your name on them.
Yeah.
So it's not yours to have right now. So just keep working harder until it is yours to have. And then once the name is on the ticket, then start worrying about ticket sales. But there's no ticket sales. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
It blew my mind. It just was like, yeah, that's very true. I'm complaining about not having something that no one's giving. I feel like I should just have, when it's like, well, then you obviously didn't do enough work yet. That's what that means. You just have to keep working harder.
Oh my God, that's exactly it. I feel the same way. I don't know if I feel the same way with me right now, but I feel that urge. I feel that urge of complacency, and I feel the urge of self-entitlement to, why am I not getting booked for X, Y, and Z? Like, I'll look at people in the Pittsburgh scene and be like, why the fuck am I not getting booked for that same exact show? And things like that. I feel the same exact way. I struggle with, I feel like as a comic, you kind of have to have that, like a little bit. Like, for me, it drives me. If I see somebody on a show that I know I could have performed better on that show, it drives me to do better. It drives me to go to more open mics and write and work on a craft. I feel, for me, I think it helps in some bizarre way.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, you're gonna have an ego no matter what. Like my ego still gets hurt, but I'm less inclined to be upset about things I don't have. My ego is more sort of shot in the idea that I'm whenever it's just there. I look at my calendar. Let's just say, like, I'll look at my calendar, and my calendar isn't as full as I'd like it to be. Then my ego is like, come on, man, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, like we got to get out there. We got to get moving. And then I start to feel I start to blame people a lot less, because again, if I'm not being given the opportunity, then that means that I am not in the space I need to be.
Yeah.
I'm not in front of the people. And there's been times where I am in front of the people and they just don't, they're like, nah, we're not interested. But
Right.
that's not necessarily on me, and it's not necessarily on them. Part of it is either the set wasn't what they were looking for, it was still a good set, or it was a bad set and I need to work harder.
Yeah.
You know, like there's all kinds of factors. My buddy Dustin Nickerson, he was also like, you can set all the goals you want in this type of business. However, those goals that you're trying to reach, they all have gatekeepers. So you can say, like, I want to be on Comedy Central this year, but Comedy Central is going to be the one to open and close the door.
Yeah.
So you have no control over that. Again, this whole thing is like, there is no control. There's really no control in it. The only thing you can control is your jokes and how often you're there to be on stage. Because, you know, you could be like going on an open mic tonight and it might be fucking packed, and you're just there for 3 hours and then you go home.
And then you go home. There is something when I hear you say that, there is something terrifying and genuinely exciting about that too. Like, you don't have a lot of control over a lot of stuff in life, and feels like going into stand-up, there you have another added layer of no control. I've never really thought of it that way. I've never, even when you said you could want to go on Comedy Central, but they have gatekeepers as well. I've never really considered that. Maybe that shows how naive I am a little bit. But but it's also that's also extremely exciting to hear you say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a cool aspect of this whole thing. It's like, that's why people are so terrified when you tell them this is what you want to do, because then they're like, because they know there's no they know about the gatekeepers.
Yeah, the accountant father knows there's gatekeepers.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and they don't tell you that, or maybe they tell you that, but the only way they tell you that is like, hey, you might fail.
Yeah.
Like, but it's just because they are like, do you know how hard, like, I've heard, you hear that too, where it's just like, you know how hard it is to break into stand-up comedy and blah blah blah, and then they'll be like, just because insert name here did it doesn't mean you'll be able to do it, and then you have to have that. Again, that ego kicks in, and you're like, you don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about.
Right.
I'm going to Hollywood, and you're gonna just see the back of my ass, and then you're calling up that person, and you're like, hey man, you got $200 because I'm late on my rent. Like, how's LA?
That's fine.
It's fine. It's good. Getting up a lot. Anyway,
right.
You gonna Venmo, or what's your Venmo?
Oh my god, dude, that's great. Well, we're at 46. So, almost done. Hey, thank you so much for doing this, by the way.
Yeah, man.
I have, we always end the show, I ask this question. So a backstory. I started dating a girl named Monica about a year ago.
Ooh.
I know. It's cute. She's great.
Nice.
Her friends asked me this question on the way into dating, and I think I got the right answer. So I'm going to ask you this question. So, Kane, you were at a bar. The night is going terrible. The bartender has poisoned 8 or 9 Asian people's drinks. There is quicksand in the back, swallowed up, a lot of stuff. It's a bad night, but it is also karaoke night, and it is your job, Kane, to save the entire night. What song are you singing? Thank you. Thank you for laughing. I appreciate that.
What a weird... I mean, this thing has so many different... There's a racial element to it.
There's a racial element to it.
The bartender clearly hates Asian people.
I want to say that her friends did not phrase it like that. I added the details because I'm a stand-up comedian.
You added the Asian part.
I added the Asian part.
Okay. So all these Asians are poison. Now, if I sing this song, does that mean the poison leaves their body? Like it evaporates?
Listen.
Like the song I picked is so hot that the poison bubbles and then evaporates out of their system?
I would say think of it as something nice and invigorating for the people who are still alive.
Do they start to burp out the poison like Charlie and his grandpa in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
It depends what song you sing.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I gotta.
It's genuinely possible.
Well, dying Asians. There's quicksand. What's the other part? Is that the only?
That was
two
it.
parts?
Those are the only two parts
Then I would say
for this example.
Here's what I would do, because for some reason, whenever it kicks on, people light the fuck up, and everyone knows the words to this song. Whenever I'm at karaoke night, but the person usually on the mic doesn't know it, and so it's the audience having to sing the song with them to get them back on track.
Right.
But I never have the balls to go up and do it. And so I would pick Forgot About Dre by Dr. Dre and Eminem. And the reason I would is because it's one of those perfect rap songs that's also like kind of, it's like you almost feel bad rapping along with it because there's a lot of shit that goes down. Like Eminem kills a dog, and then Dre and him burn a house down, and then Haley gets adopted by another family. You know, like there's a lot of shit that goes on in that song. And also Dre is coming at all the people that hate on him.
Right.
And everybody knows the fucking words to that song. Every single, especially the chorus.
No, that's true. Listen, I love that answer. I'm honestly happy with any answer that is not Don't Stop Believing.
I would never pick that.
Never. Why would you? Years. Why would you in a million years?
No. That is the Give It Up for the Troops version of karaoke when Don't Stop Believing kicks on.
Oh my god, dude. That's it.
Yeah.
That's a great. I'm only interested.
What was your answer?
My answer was Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, that's a good one.
I felt it was solid.
Ooh, you know what else is a really good one?
What?
It's if you can get someone who can sing it really well, and I think this would pick the poisoned Asians up.
Yeah.
Because then they think, hey, I'm being poisoned, but it's not as bad as what's happening right now. Is I Can't Make You Love Me.
Oh.
I can't remember the name of it. It's like,
I don't know.
Who's saying I Can't Make You Love Me? Come on, Siri. Bonnie Raitt.
Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah,
Bonnie Raitt?
It's probably one of the worst or the best breakup songs in the world is I Can't Make You Love Me.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Everybody knows it.
I like that going with something that the Asians would feel is worse than what's happening to them.
Dre and M save their lives, and Bonnie Raitt makes them feel okay with their situation.
I love that. I really do. That's great. I have people in LA who listen to this. Do you want to promote anything? Your episode will come out 2 weeks from today.
Oh, 2 weeks from today. Well, I don't know when it's coming out, but 2 weeks from
Monday.
2 weeks from now, I will have already recorded my comedy album at the Ice House.
Fuck.
And
I didn't know that.
It's called I'm gonna call it Can't See Straight. And
fuck, dude!
And so
congratulations, that's great.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. It's gonna be out on 800 Pound Gorilla, and they're gonna put it on Pandora, Sirius XM, and Spotify, wherever you can find it, iTunes.
Yeah.
And then so it's by this time it'll already be recorded, and then whenever it gets distributed, I'll let you know. You can follow me at Kane Holloway, KaneHolloway, and then listen to my my nerd podcast.
Yes.
Called Well Actually, a podcast for nerds who think they know everything.
I'll promote it at the beginning, bio and everything, which is great, by the way. We didn't talk about it all, but it's genuinely great.
Oh, I love it. It actually makes me feel even like when you learn about people, like strengthens your resolve. to like continue forward. Like we just did a Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets, and I had to learn about J.K. Rowling. And if I ever hear people complain that their kids are killing their dreams, it's like this woman wrote a fucking $1 billion book franchise when she was on welfare and a single mother.
Is that true?
So I
didn't know that.
Yes. Yes. So I don't want to hear shit about how your kid's
damn.
killing your dreams.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that. I didn't know she was on welfare.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wait, it's a great podcast, by the way. I will tell
Thanks,
you that.
buddy.
So you get to sign us off. You get to say anything you'd like. I've had people swear at me. People say inspirational things. I've had people be mean. You can say whatever you'd like.
Oh my gosh. The greatest love song ever is "Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley.
You think it's the greatest love song?
You said I could say anything.
I understand that. Doesn't mean I can't disagree with you. Sincerely.
I thought that was like the last thing that was going to be said on the show. I didn't know we were going to debate afterwards.
Well, I'll edit it out. I'll cut it out.
I think it's the greatest love song. He's never going to give you up. I mean, come on.
It's like
what
a
else do you
troll
want?
song. It's like
No.
That's the only troll song that we have.
Listen to it again. Maybe get high. I don't know what you got to do. I listened to it when I was high on coke one time, and I was like, "This is the greatest love song I've ever
greatest love song of
heard in my life." Yeah, and I've listened to it sober, and my ideas have not changed.
They're not changing? Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll stop. Thanks, Kane.